Well, hey, welcome back to Footnotes. This is our podcast where we follow up on our teachings from Saturday night and go deeper on things we didn't have time to or chase implications for the body. And I'm joined here with Mr. Matt Natesel. Hey, Matt. How are you?
It's more awkward to do the weird intro when it's video too.
It is.
But,
people get to see you squirm a little bit. And that's really good.
Yeah. Hey, good to be here.
Good. You taught on our blessed rhythms on Saturday night, and I know we had some discussions going up to it of just when there's something that we are pursuing as a church and we're going to teach on it multiple times.
Yeah.
There is like this need to say the same thing over and over again because we're trying to establish something, and yet you don't want to say the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And I thought one of the ways you did that, which I think is really important and helpful when we're trying to establish a way of living as a church. They actually talk about this in the book that lays the blessed principles out. You just have to hear stories of it being done.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was pretty cool. What drew you to sharing that story in the first place?
Dana and Russ are in that same small group, and they came back probably back in March. Just started to tell the story of what was going on with the Ahards, Bob and Paula, and how they were just blessing people. And I think there were things that they didn't say. And this is one of those, like, how much of this was embellishment and what was true and what is I've remembered poorly. But I want to even say that Paula, like, is the kind of classroom grandma, like bakes cookies and brings them in for neighbor kids that didn't have grandmas in town and things like that. So there's just the story had stuck with me.
Yeah.
And when it got time to do this, I just said, like, I think I want to hear that story and try to capture it and share it. And Paula was sweet on Saturday night, but a little bit like, "Oh, you dude, why?" Because and that was her word. "Oh, you dude."
You dude, I like that.
Made me giggle. Because I had told her when we recorded, like, it'll be a 3 to 5 minute video like we normally do. And I forgot to follow up and told her, actually, you're kind of doing half the sermon here, so thanks. But it was Will, who shoots videos for us. Hey, Will, you're over there. And Russ and I had done the interview with them. And it was just an experience of, like, I was grinning a ton, loving the storytelling. They sat down nervous and sort of did the whole thing without realizing they were doing the whole thing. And then at the end, we asked them a question or two, and they got a little more camera shy, but there was just a humor to me. And, like, y'all are storytellers in your heart of hearts. Really good. You're good at chatting and talking and connecting. So, so that experience of hearing the story told and going like, I had been prepping for the sermon and just feeling like I'm not having a lot of clarity on, like, how to fill my time, quote unquote. Like, I'm not feeling really compelled or stirred. And so when I sat for an hour listening to them talk and was like, that didn't feel like an hour. It felt really pretty fun and special. I wonder if we could do a longer form conversation there. So
one of the things from their story that I thought was really important, and I think it's helpful to maybe connect or translate for people, that I noticed was it started with, I love mowing lawns and I have this John Deere.
Yeah.
I love baking cookies for people. And so maybe a takeaway that I wouldn't want people to get is we have to do it the exact same way as them.
Yeah.
What I think was cool is it started with passion, gifting, joy, and how do I bless other people with this passion, gifting, and joy?
Yeah, even just equipment.
Like, equipment. I've
got a thing and I want to use it. And it's silly that I'm using it on a quarter acre or whatever it is now. Maybe I should use it on an acre. It's just spread out on other people's lawns at this point. So
I'm really hoping we get to hear more stories of people as they make those connections. Oh, I have this thing that can be a blessing, because it's not a call to go do something you have no resources to do.
Yeah.
But it's actually to look at the resources you have and go, man, let me bless people with that. I know there's one of my Old Testament profs pointed this out, and I thought it was really, really interesting. In Deuteronomy 6 in the Shema says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And that word strength in Hebrew is like a really literal translation would be your muchness. Like, what do you have much of? What are your resources?
Yeah.
And so it's love God with all your heart, soul, and your resources. And what I heard them say is they looked at their resources and said, this is what we have to give. We're going to bless people with it.
Yeah.
And so I found that really compelling, just to kind of, if that were the question in Mosaic, is what is our muchness?
Yeah.
Everybody's muchness is going to look different,
Mm-hmm.
but can I be a blessing with that to other people? So I was really blessed by their story.
Yeah.
Yeah, in pastoring around fellowship over a long term now, there's been a lot of other guys I've pastored alongside that have all had a variety of gifts, and when I have felt the compulsion to compare and go, I'm not going to run a classroom like this person can, or rally people around an idea like this person can, or distill in a few words this difficult concept like this person can, or just whatever it is that I feel like I'm going, this guy's awesome, this guy's awesome, this guy's awesome. I think it is that thing that you feared of like, hey, don't walk away thinking the best way to do this is to replicate me. It's to actually be open-handed with what the Lord has made me, not those guys. I have a very different skill set, and I can bring those things, and they are a gift to our church. So, so I'm thinking about after the tornado and the guys that delighted to show up with their skid steers and chainsaws, and like, I'm just going to work for 6 hours in this person's yard. Like, okay, like that's such a tangible, practical. You got your tools out and your toys out, and you were ready to go. And as a guy who doesn't like running a chainsaw, it was fun to move the things out of the way that the skid steer could very much handle, but I needed to do something. So
I talked to someone the other day who was they were like, I love looking at money and budgets, and so anyone who is overwhelmed by figuring out their finances, I would just love to sit down with them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I can do, and I enjoy it. It's actually fun for me. I think every example of that is really cool and cool to see happen in the body of Christ. What paths of conversation were one of the ways we frame the question is usually what was in your notes that got cut? That you're like, this is a path I wanted to go and we just didn't have time for.
Yeah. In my feeling kind of scattered about it, I this doesn't happen every time, but I just said, hey, Kara, will you read the script and just go like, where is it slowing down, or where am I losing the train? And one of the places she called me out is she said, the way you have it written here is very negative and very glass half full. And I don't think you need to go to the work to like redeem this in the sermon. I think cut it. And if you feel compelled to say it later, say it later. And so that's the one that I think has been, if I'm honest, I think I was kind of trying to make it work in the sermon because I think it's something that's been stirring in my heart a bit. But it's the glass half empty version of it is, we are the Saturday night congregation that meets on a campus built for a much larger church. We are maybe never going to fill the room. So if your expectation is every seat in this auditorium is full and that's what it means to be healthy, I just don't. It's still a countercultural thing to not do what our culture does on Saturday and instead come to church. And I just don't know if that will ever be the tipping point. But in getting to say the more like visionary, hopeful way of saying that, I think it has its roots in multiplication and the experience of I've been in the room when it's been more full and when it's been 150 people and it feels like what happened? Where did people go? And each of those times that those drops have occurred have been the open-handed visionary planting of something new. It's sending core leaders, teammates, even from staff, to go and start new things or redeem things that are floundering and need kind of an injection of health. And so, my hope would be that room never fills. That because where we're at right now, we would need to like triple in size. Mm-hmm. I hope that we don't sit on our laurels multiplying and filling that space without sending and launching and being open-handed with people. And there's far too much work to do in Northwest Arkansas. There's far too many pockets to make the Mosaic congregation on the Rogers campus make sense for people.
Yep.
I just doesn't, if we've got people driving up from Farmington, but they're the odd duck that's willing to, I would love for them to anchor in when Farmington gets up and going, or Prairie Grove does, and invest deeply there as a release leader. And if I get to spend time training people here for that work, and then grieving their loss, because it's sad to invest in a person and care about them and know that the decision they're making means we're not going to see each other as much. But also this is the right decision, and I can't wait for you to go do that. You're a gift hitting the ground running there for those people. I hope that we're driven by that vision of go and tell, and I just don't think the Saturday night congregation will be able to be one that gets to say, like, the room is full, we need to do this. I don't know. What's that? Am I off in the clouds there? Yeah.
No, that's really helpful. Here's where I think, I do think, and I'll be getting into, I have to be careful not to go like very 30,000 Nick.
1,000 years ago.
Reflecting on the state of American church. But I do think a consumer mindset approach to church has infected how we think the mission of the church in an unhealthy way. And so if you are, I was about to use names of particular retailers in Northwest Arkansas, and that'll be unhelpful in some ways.
Yeah.
But if I open a business, a lot of my thinking is, how do I get customers to my business and not the one across the street?
Yeah.
And
it's a zero-sum game.
It's a zero-sum game. And we easily can think that way in church. How do I get people to Mosaic and not the church across the street? Oh my gosh, they're going to the church across the street. What are we doing wrong?
Yeah.
That is never how church was meant to be.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's a really broken way of thinking of church. The goal is to be a healthy family of Jesus followers that are helping people become more like Jesus, and to have a vision for seeing people reached with the gospel that are not being reached right now.
Yeah.
And if you think that way, one of the things that means is you don't. I had this conversation with a friend of mine who's a church planter in Portland, Oregon, Cameron Hager, and we both were he was in town, we were having coffee, and we both were laughing about, like, I am just sick of trying to convince people that my church is the right one. Like, I'm just done. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
That is just, I have no interest in doing that. I love the different approaches to church that are around us. And if they're preaching the gospel, if they're faithful, Orthodox Christian churches, then I want to champion them and be excited about them being there. And I want to shepherd the people who have found this church to be their home. And I hope that there are people who will, I think the way healthy family works is there's a lot of things that you wouldn't choose about your family. And yet it's still your family, and yet you're committed to life together.
Yeah.
And I think that's a more compelling way to think of church than I found the brand of church that perfectly fits me.
Yeah.
I actually think our church should not fit us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things about Mosaic that don't fit me.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually healthy for me, to be in church in a place that doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
Because it challenges me to get outside of my selfishness in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so that was
and you're at the helm, you have a lot of control to shape it in your own image. But when I'm thinking about the average congregant, I actually want everybody to come and shape Mosaic to be the kind of place that they would want to be.
Yeah.
Within the space of, like, if you actually want it to be like chainsaw juggling, then probably not. But if it if it fits within the context of, I actually want this to be a place that I can invite people like me.
Yep.
So I'm going to make the pocket of that influence here. That's beautiful and really helpful. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the person on the stage teaching twice a month. It's I'm in the room, and I can make whatever the foyer feel that way, or my row feel that way.
Yeah.
My small group feel that way.
There's a big difference between a church being healthy and inviting and a church being tailored to everyone's tastes.
Yeah.
And the multiplication of churches in the Bible Belt in some ways has given the impression that church can be tailored to everyone's taste. But the idea that you would make it inviting for everyone, I think, is really beautiful and really healthy. Now, why that long tangent? Because I think we need to be ready to be very content with who we are as a church, and have an approach to evangelism and multiplication. This will bleed into where we're going next week, the multiplication, that is unthreatened by launching new expressions of church that are going to look different than us, that are going to be a draw to a group of people that we're not reaching right now.
Yeah.
And that has to be the motivation. I would use the example of we are not going to run out of space in our house for our daughter, Karis, to live there. Her bedroom is there.
Yeah.
She could live in that bedroom the rest of her life. We don't expect that she's going to move out one day because we need that room back. We want to move out one day because that's going to be a healthy next step of maturity for her.
Yeah.
To become an adult and move out. And that's going to be like grief for us, but that's also going to be joy for us. Like, I want her to be a thriving, healthy adult who goes and starts a life outside of our home. And so yeah, there should be a desire for maturity and growth that multiplies and launches and sends, that is driven by that vision. Not simply though we ran out of space. Now, for some churches, the run out of space is the impetus.
Yeah.
And I even think, like, when you think about small groups, there are going to be some small groups that need to multiply because they're out of space.
Yeah.
They just can't fit people in the living room. But if we do not have a vision for multiplication until we're over capacity, I don't know what you've seen. In my experience with small groups, it is much harder to multiply when you're at 25 people and you're out of space than it is to multiply early and somebody has a vision for, I'm going to go start a new group.
Yeah.
And so I think that vision for multiplying, sending, that comes before we're out of space, I actually think that's a more sustainable way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the multiplication that happens when God gives somebody a vision for something that they wish was happening that's not, and they can step out in faith and do that, and invite others into it. So the group of 20 says, these two couples actually want to do something, replicate this a little closer to home and invite their neighbors. That's a gold mine. Yeah.
There's something I love about kind of the blessed rhythms in general is I think the idea that sharing Jesus with people is a blessing. I think it's something we really need to reclaim, because I think we're at a cultural moment that just is really confused about evangelism. And it's taken, somebody showed me a rant on social media the other day that I thought it helped highlight two ditches on how people think about sharing their faith. What this person was saying, this is a person who is not a believer, and she was challenging whether any Christians were actually believed what they said. Because she said, if we actually believed that you had to trust Jesus, or else you would go to hell, then we should be the crazy person on the street corner screaming at people. Like, that's the only reasonable conclusion, is that you should be grabbing people, shaking them, yelling at their face, repent.
Yeah.
So there's that perspective of evangelism, that we should be yelling and screaming at people out of desperation. The other extreme is it is rude and judgmental to tell people that your way is right.
Yep.
And what I think that, like, the natural expression is to scream at people, actually doesn't understand very well how persuasion happens. I know very few people who are compelled to change their beliefs or their way of living because somebody grabbed them and shook them and screamed at them. So I think that person on that rant didn't understand how actual persuasion works.
Yeah.
But if it's not grab someone and scream and shake at them, be the person on the street corner yelling at people, but it's also not judgmental, just going around condemning everybody, I'm right, you're wrong. The middle ground is like, I actually want to live something that is compelling. I want to show people a way of life that I think is beautiful and introduces them to a God who loves them. And I think that's one of the things I love about Bless, is it does tie the beautiful life and the beautiful message together.
Yeah.
Instead of those potentially being separated.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, when this is not necessarily a reply to what you just said, but just considering Bless and what it might mean for Mosaic. It might mean that folks join us who have not belonged, and they find a welcome community amongst us. It might mean that in encountering Christ, they catch a vision for that very ability to start a thing that doesn't exist, and we are, the people of Mosaic are finding themselves in discipleship, encouragement relationships as somebody begins a thing, or they show up and they attend for a bit in a season of, like, what's the old training center thing? Like, this is both training center and like greenhouse. Let's get you healthy and all
greenhouse, training
those
center,
things.
Launchpad,
And then knowing that Launchpad very well might mean launch away and out from this Saturday night at 5:00 or 6:30 kind of space. So And that makes me hopeful. Makes me hopeful in the people will and should show up, and so you should be sitting next to people you don't recognize, even if you've been in that same row a long time, because they're just checking it out for the first time. And you also should be hearing about God doing really cool things in other pockets, like we were able to see with the Aharts, and go, like, God's really on the move in Northwest Arkansas, and He's really encountering people and stirring in hearts, and this is pretty compelling. So, I feel hopeful about the influence that Bless might have amongst the people of Mosaic.
So I still keep coming back to the dream. I think it'd be amazing if 2 years from now, every community group could tell a story of someone coming to know the Lord through Bless Rhythms.
Yep.
That would shape our body in a profound way.
Yep.
If every community group had that story of some way they saw someone loved to Jesus over the last 2 years. So I'm praying to that end for sure. Matt, thanks for teaching us. Thanks to the Aharts for sharing their story.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening to Footnotes. We'll see you on Saturday.